Hello everyone, welcome to Workshop Wednesdays. My name is Ebony Stewart and I'm going to be going over lesson plans from my curriculum Home.Girl.Hood. And so today we'll be looking at the Common Core Deluxe version curriculum. And this version has 32 lessons, which is also 6 to 12 weeks of material, right? So let's look at that. There are different types of academic standards. And so last week we looked at the Texas standards, and this week we're looking at the Common Core. Each curriculum comes with a table of contents so you can see what all different poems are offered. There's an introduction to tell you more about the curriculum and how it all got started from Home.Girl.Hood. There's also the Common Core standards, and so this looks very much different from the Texas standards, but I just wanted to let you see what that looks like and how those academic standards are different. And of course, you would choose whichever academic standard that is appropriate to your state or wherever you are or the participants that you work with. And so now we're looking at how to use this curriculum, right? And so I want to be sure to say that this curriculum is really easy to use, but it will require some prep and review of each lesson before it's introduced. And I want to make sure I say that because I don't want the curriculum to be blatantly or indirectly weaponized or misused in any type of way against anyone, right? And so this is an opportunity for you to learn as the facilitator, but also for the participants to learn as well. And more importantly, it just looked good as any type of instructor to look over stuff, child. Look at the stuff now. Learn what you're doing, yeah? So of course we have a glossary. I talked about this last time, but each curriculum obviously has a glossary and different key terms for you to use. For instance, there's Beyonce, right? So I know that like Texas does a lot of crazy stuff, right? Like I know we be in the news, child. We be doing things that nobody can believe or understand. But I also just want to say and add that we gave y'all Beyonce. You welcome. Okay, so the glossary goes from A to Z. And today we'll be looking at the poem Fear, right? And so we have key terms here, of course. We have literary terms and devices. And these are something for us to familiarize ourselves with because this poem will be looking at these exact key terms, literary terms and devices, right? Right here in this section of material, I want to note that if there is a video that goes along with this particular lesson, it'll be listed here. This one doesn't have it, but that's something to note. The duration is here as well. Of course, you can adjust that based on your class or what your time restraints are. But 45 minutes is where we're looking at it as far as standard. So, or expectation rather. So the warm up is just a discussion, right? And so we're talking about what is fear? What are some things to be afraid of or to fear? What are examples of cultural fears, irrational fears, environmental fears? And then we give a definition of phobia and then ask what are some examples of phobia? And even just saying like, what are you afraid of? This is a moment for us to humanize ourselves as facilitators or teachers, educators. A lot of times young people don't get an opportunity to learn about us in these very human ways. And so this curriculum itself is asking you to be human, to speak on your own fears, because everyone has something that they're afraid of, right? And I think it also helps for them to know that, you can overcome a fear possibly, or this is something that you're working on now. I'm afraid of spiders. Okay, spiders and clowns. Is something not right about them? I'm terrified, right? But I also understand that it's an irrational fear. Okay, so part one looks at fear itself, the poem. And when you're looking at this poem, and I'll show you really quickly, I'll hop over just to give you an example of what the poem itself looks like, right? And remember, we're not shying away from hard topics, right? We're actually leaning in. And so you ask someone to read the poem, and then you have everyone else follow along. And then in the response portion, you're going to go with the initial reactions and just ask them, what are the thoughts that they have about this poem? And we look at the style, right? And what are some examples of repetition? How does repetition impact the poem? And we're looking at all of these different ways that personification and fear work together. The content itself, for instance, what does the author mean when they say, must be a belly's echo with muffled screams slung all around? You're asking those questions. Does the poet reject fear, embrace fear, overcome fear? Why or why not? And I think it's really important to allow the participants an opportunity to give you those answers rather than you just blatantly coming out and giving them the answers, right? Because the next portion is them writing their own poems. And so that's just as important for them to have that dialogue with you and to show you that they understand, um, and for them to also get some kind of direction. Let's go back up. As y'all can tell, I'm not tech savvy, and I don't feel bad about it at all. So, okay. Part two is just fear personified, and this is when we get into the actual writing of this whole ordeal, right? So for the first 20 minutes, we've only been having discussion. And for the next 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes total, they're going to be actually writing poems, and then maybe a few students, participants will share what they have, right? And so you want to be looking at, you want to ask them to, personify their fear and describe different life phases of the personification of fear to include birth, upbringing, death, and stress that impact of repetition in their poems, right? So basically, this will help them to create a rhythm or a flow of a sort as a writer. And so I think it's pretty important. It's a pretty important topic to discuss fear and to talk about fear, since it's such a common emotion and is rarely discussed in depth, particularly at this time. Discussing our fears around COVID-19 can help relieve us, it can help educate us, it could also um, help us to have a type of empathy, right, for someone else. And so I want to just speak on different adaptations and maybe even some different instructions and extensions that you can use. For instance, when we talk about our fear towards uh, COVID-19, maybe this is something that your students or participants will want to bring up, but it's also important for us to direct them back to the anti-Asian assaults and hate crimes due to the coronavirus spread, right? And so helping them to have empathy for and, you know, really get a better understanding of how to have a fear, recognize it as irrational, but also have empathy towards others and not mistreat other people. So this is that on that, right? So this is fear. And I don't know, y'all, like, let me know what you think. Let me know if your participants have written to this. And then once they do, I can definitely share it on any of my platforms. Um, but I would love to see what your students come up with, and how fear works for them, or how you all have come to discuss it. Of course, I'm just going to leave this right here for you to look over, and you can definitely reach out to me about how to get this curriculum more in depth and how to use it with your students, or the different participants, people, young people that you work with. I also think that I would go on a limb to say that this wouldn't be so bad for adults to use either. Just saying. I don't know. You know the people that you talk to and what y'all doing, chat. But yeah, so let me know what you think. Try it out. Send me the poems that you have on fear. I would love, love, love to read them and share them with other people. um, or on my platforms. And yeah, thank y'all for checking this out. I hope it was helpful. Talk to y'all soon.